What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Wanted to go over some updates regarding the DC pipe bomb suspect. New information has come out. He's appearing in court today. I was trying to wait to see if there was other lives as far as like outside of the courthouse or whatever, but there's really not much going on. So I figured let me just jump on and we'll go over all the updates that we can about the case. And it's pretty interesting, kind of almost shocking a bit. Wait till you get a load of this. I don't know if you guys, yeah, Trump supporter, apparently they're saying. So let me go through some of the details. The arrest came after years of false leads and speculation over who planted the bombs near the Capitol before January 6th riot. Federal agents have arrested a man they suspect of placing 2 pipe bombs and all that. Brian Cole was taken into custody at the home he shared with his parents. By the way, hold up. Did I not call this yesterday? Mama's love. Mama. You can always count on Mama. I love you, Mom and Daddy. I'll never let you down. Mama. Let me put this in the chat. Mama's love. How did I know it? He lives with Mommy and Daddy. Oh, Lord. Mama's love. Oh, no. Mommy and Daddy. I knew it. Send the ferrets. So anyway, so they took him into custody, and authorities have yet to disclose a motive for the planting of bombs outside of the Republican and Democratic National Convention. But get this, to me, this is like motive. Mr. Cole told investigators that he was sympathetic to President Trump's claim that the election was stolen from him, according to a person familiar with the matter. The lack of breakthroughs in the case led to many to promote unfounded theories about the bombs and the storming of the Capitol by a pro-Trump mob, including the suggestion that this may have been to discredit Trump's supporters. So they're saying they use cell phone data to track the suspect down. Now, the suspect, I heard that he's going to make his defense is going to be because they identified him, something about his sneakers. Let me put it up on the screen. He is going to claim racial profiling. Something about evidence of sneakers and Nike Air. I'm just kidding about that. That would have been wild, though. But no, they tracked him with cell phone data. The arrest came after years of investigative work with agents conducting hundreds of interviews, combing through surveillance footage, and producing profiles of several suspects. The authorities issued subpoenas to vendors selling items similar to those found in the bombs, and even to the type of sneakers profiling he was seen wearing. He was identified from Prince William County in Virginia as the suspect after taking a fresh look at their files and re-examining earlier leads. The case prompted agents to focus on his movements and transactions around the time the bombs were planted. So they used cell phone data to track his location on the night of the bombs were set, then compared it with surveillance footage of the path the masked would-be bomber took. They also traced purchases of bomb components, including galvanized pipe batteries and timers. Wow. To his bank and credit card records. This motherfucker didn't even buy cash. He did not even buy the stuff cash. I mean, they still might have pulled him up on camera, but it all traces back to his bank account and credit cards? What the? On some Jesse Smollett shit. Didn't Jesse Smollett write a check in his name for the alleged fraudulent shit? Juicy Smollett check. Let's see if we got an image of the check. Motherfucker wrote a check. No, that where's the? Here we go. Hell nah. He might as well have written a check. Wow. By the way, do I not have any live notifications? No notifications.
It was the whole family and the lawyer.
Yeah, I had notifications.
Yeah, they went out that way. I was in the courtroom, so I followed them.
Wow. The suspect said he He believed Trump's claims of the stolen election.
No. There was one. Well, I don't know who it was. Guys are chasing after them. Thank you.
Trying to get some inside info. Let me just post this on Discord. See if we can pull some people in here. Okay. So they're saying that he believed Trump's claims of a stolen election. Investigators have not publicly addressed the questions about the suspect's motive, including why he targeted both major political parties. Mr. Cole is speaking with federal agents who we hope to learn more about what he was thinking. Mr. Cole told investigators he believed the false claim that the 2020 election was stolen from Mr. Trump, according to a person familiar with the matter. First hint at what he may have driven him. There's a possibility that defense lawyers could argue that Mr. Trump's sweeping clemency for those charged over the January 6th riot could also apply to Mr. Cole. Mr. President's proclamation of clemency was broad and covered all defendants accused of convicted offenses related to the events that occurred at or near the United States Capitol on January 6, 2021. Imagine, I don't think he'll get off, but imagine he did. Imagine he walks. The case has fueled conspiracy theories for years. The unresolved case fueled conspiracy theories about the pipe bombs, including claims from some of Trump's allies that the devices were planted as part of an inside job to discredit Mr. Trump's supporters, the deep state law enforcement and intelligence officials, Candace Owens, and others. Dan Bongino, a former right-wing podcaster who is the FBI's deputy director, was one of the most prominent voices advancing those theories. So, really, really big, interesting update as far as potential motive. The claims that supposedly he believed the election was stolen and he felt sympathetic towards Trump. And so I'm going to go ahead and try to blow shit up. What? What? And also, I don't know if you guys had heard that Jake Tapper said the suspect was white on TV. Do we have that clip? Might have to look it up.
Planting pipe bombs near the Republican and Democratic National Committee headquarters the night before the January 6, 2021 Capitol attack. Brian Cole Jr., a 30-year-old white man from the D.C. suburbs, is charged with transporting an explosive device in interstate commerce and with malicious destruction by means of explosion. CNN observed local and federal law enforcement outside his home in Woodbridge, Virginia this morning. Attorney General Pam Bondi gave very few details about the suspect this morning, but said this cold case had...
I was kidding about Candace Owens. Pam Bondi raises major questions. Listen for a little bit.
The suspect is expected to appear in court this afternoon, nearly 5 years after he allegedly planted 2 pipe bombs.
Madeline Rivera joins us now from Washington with the latest. Good morning, Maddie.
Good morning. The U.S. Attorney for D.C., Jeanine Pirro, described the search for the suspect as finding a needle in a haystack. But after years of looking, they believe the man that allegedly left the pipe bombs outside of the RNC and DNC on January 5th, 2021 is 30-year-old Brian Cole Jr. He is now facing 2 federal charges. Agents visited more than 1,200 homes and businesses, conducted more than 1,000 interviews, and reviewed approximately 39,000 video files. But investigators say it was a new look at old information in the original file that broke the case. Court documents state Cole's credit card history shows throughout 2019 and 2020, he bought several materials that match the components of the bombs. These include galvanized pipes and end caps, battery connectors, kitchen timers, and electrical wire. Cell phone records were also crucial.
Wow.
Cell phone pings indicate Cole's phone was allegedly in the area of the RNC and DNC the night of the crime. U.S. officials say this is only the beginning of the investigation. There are still search warrants being carried out. Authorities were spotted outside of Cole's home in Woodbridge, Virginia on Thursday. Investigators believe Cole acted alone. We have not yet learned of a motive, and he could face more charges.
Let's see, Pam Bondi. Yeah, Pam Bondi.
Friends this morning.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lawrence.
So let's talk about this case, because the technology that y'all used to get this suspect off the street, first it was a huge win for the country, but also for your department.
I can't play both? What the hell's going on? Oh, that's weird.
It's not that new, so why didn't the last FBI and Department of Justice catch this guy?
Lawrence, and that's the great question. This case languished. It sat there for 4 years collecting dust. No one did anything to solve this. And right when Kash Patel and Dan Bongino came in, Dan said to me, Dan said to all of us, I'm going to solve this case. He put a new team on it, working with Jeanine Pirro, our U.S. attorney, with Todd Blanche, with all of our attorneys at Maine Justice. A new team gathered on this case. Old evidence, new people, great police work. That's all it is. Good old-fashioned police work. And it solved a case that right from where I'm sitting, this bomb was planted at the RNC, a pipe bomb, at the DNC. They were real. Thank goodness they didn't detonate. Both bombs were real. And, Lawrence, something else really special about the investigation, it was kept quiet. The entire investigation did not leak. It was kept quiet because we got someone who is charged with a very, very dangerous crime off the streets, and more to come.
Yeah, Pam, what did his parents know? I mean, he was living at their house. Did they see, was he building bombs in his bedroom?
Daddy.
You know, all I can say is what you just saw. You saw a big, beautiful house. That's the suspect where he was living with his mother. That's been reported. I can't talk about any of the evidence, but it's ongoing. They are pouring through evidence. You know, you saw hundreds of agents are on this case because this is a very dangerous person. And again, I believe there are more charges to come, but this is just the combination of great police work and all of my agencies working together, Maine Justice, FBI, U.S. Attorney, along with the D.C. Metro Police and the Secret Service and so many agencies. And that's what President Trump has promised to do, make D.C. safe again and the entire country.
So, Pam, the key is going to be, because he put it in front of the RNC, the bomb, and the DNC, but thankfully didn't detonate. Are we close?
I read somewhere that he's facing up to 20 years, is what I saw.
To finding out what his motivation was. Is he upset with politics generally? Who did he follow? Who did he vote for? You know, where did he show up in other places? Can you share any of that yet?
Yeah, I can't. I've heard a lot of, you know, reporting and rumors and online things, but I'm going to leave that up to the FBI.
All right. Attorney General, I want to bring you to this illegal immigrant from Somalia that has now been charged with multiple.
Okay, let me see what else we got here. Pipe bomb suspect. Let's see.
Hello, it's 10 Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific. I'm Ana Cabrera reporting from New York. We begin with the breaking news. The man accused of planting pipe bombs in D.C. is reportedly talking to investigators and revealing key information as he gets ready to face a judge in just a few hours. Let's get right to MS Now Justice and Intel reporter Ken Delanian, MS Now investigative reporter Mark Santia, and MS Now law enforcement analyst, former U.S. Capitol Police Chief Tom Manger. Ken, start us off with your new reporting. What is this suspect telling investigators?
Good morning, Anna. My colleague Carol Lenig and I have learned from multiple sources that this suspect has essentially confessed to planting the bombs, and he's told FBI agents that he is a supporter of Donald Trump. But they've also gathered evidence that he has anarchist leanings. And so what they're saying is the motive here, the drivers of this act, are not entirely clear. And they're expressing caution about drawing any conclusions about any of this information. They say that they have assessed that he has antisocial tendencies. Remember, he lived alone with his parents. Neighbors have described him as quiet and shy. So a lot remains unclear. But the key thing is that he's confessed. They appear to have solved this case after 5 long years of trying to gather evidence on it.
So, Tom, your reaction to this new reporting, an apparent confession?
I'm not surprised. When you look at the affidavit that was filed in court yesterday, they had an overwhelming amount of evidence that linked this individual to this crime. Not only his purchasing history, but they had his phone pinging on cell towers in that area during that time. And then the icing on the cake was they had a license plate reader that came off of one of the interstates that comes right up to the Capitol and had his license plate passing through that license plate reader on that day as well. So when typically when you're going to interview a suspect in a case, you'll present some of the evidence, not all of it, but some of the evidence that you have, which oftentimes makes them think they've got me, I might as well confess. So I think that when presented with all of this, my guess is he knew that he was caught.
Mark, Brian Cole Jr. is going to be in federal court this afternoon. What are we expecting?
Well, cameras are not allowed in federal court, but we'll have a team inside. They're going to give us the step-by-step. Cole Jr. will face a judge. There's going to be a formal reading of the charges. An attorney will be assigned to him if he needs an attorney. He's also going to face those charges of leaving the pipe bombs outside the RNC, DNC on January 5th, 2021. It's expected, Anna, this will be a quick proceeding. The judge will then decide, does he set bail or will he be remanded into custody? We're going to find out in just a few hours.
Ken, do we have any idea about the motive at this point based on the interviews that investigators are doing with this suspect?
No, and they've expressed caution to us about that you really can't draw any conclusions at this point. One person familiar with the matter told us we just don't know what the drivers are at this point. But there is some concern about his mental health, about his mental state, about his antisocial tendencies. That could end up looming larger than any particular ideological motive in this case.
Chief, you mentioned, investigators had a lot of evidence about this suspect. I do want to come back to Mark to kind of dig into that deeper. What kind of evidence was in that affidavit that connects him directly to this crime?
So they had multiple, right? They had the geolocation data. That was from the suspect's phone. They had surveillance footage. They compared that data. They were able to triangulate that. They had credit card receipts, purchases made by the suspect. So they had him sort of the planning, if you allegedly the planning, the sort of procedure of putting that together, and then the placement. They also had that LPR, that license plate reader that hits on the vehicle. They will put that together, put that in the side. But the big question is, what took the FBI so long? You heard Director Patel said they've been sitting on that. The prior administration had been sitting on that for 4 years. And that's a big question that law enforcement wants answers.
Ken, were they just sitting on it for 4 years, or did they just miss connecting the dots?
I mean, I got to say, the statements of the FBI director trying to impute a political motive to this are just ridiculous on their face. Joe Biden wasn't running this investigation. Career FBI agents were. And there was clearly a failure because they had this information in their holdings for years. There was a data analysis failure. And boy, have we heard that story at the FBI before, Anna. The FBI is notorious for its difficulty dealing with information technology, dealing with large amounts of data. And what's the difference between now and 3 years ago? Artificial intelligence. And I've been talking to my sources, former FBI officials who believe they applied AI tools to this huge data set of credit card records and cell phone records and license plate reader records that they had gathered, and they were able to get a hit that pointed to this suspect, and then they subpoenaed his credit card records, and then it was all available for everyone to see.
Chief, help us understand how this can slip through the cracks.
I think in this case, it was the overwhelming amount of data that they were dealing with. Interviewing over 1,000 people, they had tens of thousands of video cameras or videos to look at. Look, I'm not here to make excuses for why
everyone, and good morning to you. I'm Meteorologist Chesley McNeil.
During my time as Capitol Police Chief, I got periodic briefings from the FBI on this case. It never crossed my mind that they weren't still working actively on this case. But I will say this, that there's a reason that police departments have cold case squads that go back to serious crimes to have fresh eyes look at them, because very often fresh eyes, new technology help solve crimes that weren't solved years ago. And I think this could well have been something where you had fresh eyes looking at this data. I think Ken's right on the mark with the artificial intelligence. There are programs, there are investigative tools that exist today that didn't exist even just a couple years ago. So I don't know if that comes into play here or not. But again, fresh eyes on a case can oftentimes give a break.
Mark, this case has had so many conspiracy theories put out, including by the man who is now the deputy director of the FBI, Dan Bongino. Prior to this role, he was saying things like this was an inside job. What's he saying now?
He also suggested, Anna, that there was a massive cover-up. He's definitely taking a different posture now, couching some of his statements much more carefully, if you will. Take a listen. He did speak out about that. Take a listen.
I was paid in the past, Sean, for my opinions. That's clear. And one day I'll be back in that
guys,
space.
I'm trying to
but
find
that's not what
something.
I'm paid for now. I'm paid to be your deputy director, and we base investigations on facts. We evolve. As information and new inputs come out, we can produce different outputs because that's what we believe in. We believe in facts.
We believe in facts. So obviously taking a very different tone after the arrest yesterday, Anna.
Chief, should that statement, this slight shift, calm some nerves about how the FBI and the DOJ has been operating under this administration?
I'm not sure about that. It's unfortunate, being a cop for 46 years, I can tell you that for most of my career, the FBI was looked at as one of the most professional, if not the most professional investigative agency in our country. And in the last 5, 6, 7 years, we've just seen the FBI politicized, and I'm not pointing the finger at who did it or why, but in fact, you've got members of Congress who echoed conspiracy theories, including one that pointed a finger at a former Capitol police officer, that they might have had some involvement. And we knew that that was absolutely nonsense at the time, but you had members of Congress and, of course, all these other folks, including the now deputy director of the FBI, spouting off things that certainly were not helpful to the investigation. And they spoke with no knowledge or basis in facts about the case.
I want to bring in former U.S. Attorney Joyce Vance, who worked as a bomb prosecutor. Joyce, as we now learn that this suspect is talking to investigators, has given an apparent confession to planting those bombs, what are prosecutors going to be doing next? Do they need to go back and then try to link his statements to the evidence?
Well, the affidavit that was released yesterday provides a compelling portrait of the government's evidence in this case. And Anna, as you've been discussing, one of the real tragedies of the era that we live in is that the politicization of the Justice Department has made it more difficult for people to have confidence when the FBI does the hard, painstaking work it clearly did in this case to bring a perpetrator of a crime that imposed great risk on the public because these bombs were operational when the FBI brings that person to justice. But what prosecutors will look at now is taking the evidence against this defendant. He is apparently talking with law enforcement. So now, as he continues to speak, they'll want to confirm the evidence in the affidavit, which, when you put it together, is quite compelling. They have evidence that this defendant purchased components that were used for making these bombs. Not just one component, but multiple components, like the timers, kitchen timers that were used in the bombs, like the end caps in 2 specific varieties. So that'll be important to go over with him. They've got cell tower information that places him in the location where bombs were planted around the time that they were planted. They'll go over that with him and see if he'll confess in that regard. And then, of course...
Okay. There was a situation, but it's not live anymore, but I'm going to check when I get back to see if it's still popping off. It looks kind of interesting, but I think it's in one of those rural areas, maybe. But that's the update with the bomb dude. I will come back late. I want to do the story I mentioned yesterday. When I get back, I'll cover it. That one story from yesterday. And I'm going to try to follow up on the situation. There's no live now, but I'll see if I can find more, all right? All right. And so far, connection is smooth. The hell's wrong with this shit? I'm right here. It's not like focusing on me. Hello? Fuck. All right. Anyway, I will catch you guys later. We'll see what else pops off today. The connection is running buttery smooth. I thought there'd be more people for this, but I guess nobody really cares. I guess once he's caught, that's it. Whatever. Move on to the next one, right? Move on to the next one. All right, guys. I will catch you in a little bit, okay? Gotta go pick up